Everyone doing good? Awesome. Okay, so as you may already know, I am Let Me Explain Studios. I am a YouTube animator. We sometimes call ourselves storytime animators, animated storytellers, and I basically make cartoons on YouTube for a living. I started off as a theater nerd, and I went to school here in San Antonio for theater. And then after about a year of that, I was like, that's not gonna work out. And I was already drawing cartoons and fan art. How many of you are fan artists? Very good, very good. Because that's how it started off for me. So I drew a lot of fan art, and I thought, you know, I've always wanted to go into animation. So I built up a portfolio here in San Antonio, and I went and got into Ringling College of Art and Design and got my BFA in computer animation. And I was supposed to go off and get big studio jobs like Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, and then YouTube happened. So I've got my foot in the door in both worlds. So if you have YouTube related questions, independent, like freelance related questions, or if you have big studio questions, I'm good for all those. So let's just go ahead and open it up then. Anybody want to jump up and run?
Hi. So this is more of a question about just how you work. So I know that given the nature of the work that you do, especially how YouTube rewards content that is quickly generated and then pushed out. How do you manage your time with that? How do you manage the projects? Obviously, animation takes a lot more time than, say, different content on YouTube. How do you manage that?
Well, it's basically, we could turn my microphone down a little bit, it's echoey a little. Okay. What it basically comes down to is learning your process, and that is a lot of trial and error, and that's why it's great on YouTube. It usually starts as a hobby, so you have a lot of wiggle room. You don't immediately have 1 million followers who are all begging to see something more from you. You do start small, and you do kind of figure out what works for you, what works best for your schedule. And so it really just took a lot of trial and error to make sure that I got down, okay, this is how many days I need to spend on script. This is how many days I need to spend on storyboarding. And it just kind of, you get into your own system, and you begin to know when you can maybe spend more time on doing something a little more ambitious, or no, we've got to really quickly get this out. I need to do something faster. For instance, when I was needing to go to VidCon, I asked my audience for questions and did a Q&A because that's a much faster format. So I think it just comes down to you learn how much time it takes you to do something, and you eventually get into the swing of things. And for animation, we get asked that question all the time of how is it that for YouTube that rewards things done as quickly as possible and as much as possible? How is it that you guys are putting out a video once every month or 2 months and making it work? Honest answer is, I don't know. It's this weird anomaly that's happening on YouTube right now. And I think it's just because every single video that we do, whether it's James, Jaden, anybody fans of them? Each video is seen as an event. And part of the appeal of animation, especially the kind of stuff that we do, is that it has this thing called replayability. So people will come back to the video and watch it several times. And that's because it's what they call on YouTube evergreen. And that's something that animation is really good at being, is evergreen. And I mean, there are meme animators out there, and that's kind of more quick pop in the moment kind of stuff. But the stuff we do has to be timeless. And so anybody at any time can come and watch and enjoy it, and they don't need to know what's the latest meme or the latest hot gossip. So I think that's why we can make it work.
Thank you.
Great question.
Sucks to be short. This is mainly for people who either go to animation schools or are wanting to, because just going outside of the school, when you graduate, it's super scary. So what would you suggest would be the best place to start outside of school? Where should someone start?
Get yourself a LinkedIn, make connections there, because what you need to do is you need to make yourself as easy to find online as possible. Put as few clicks between you and a recruiter as possible. Don't bury your homepage in this blog and then in this blog, and here it's in this tiny little corner. Make like a Wix or whatever, Foursquare. Make one of those and make it as easy as possible to find you. And if you're in school, you already have a network in your classmates. And that's something that you also have to remember with animation school is never burn bridges. And always be polite, because you're going to be doing business with these people again at some point. So I say keep your connections, keep your friends close, because you never know when someone's gonna say, hey, we've got an opening here at this studio you would be perfect for. So I would say best place to start, put your stuff online and just start filling out applications. And even if they feel like out of your range, do them anyway. Okay, thank you. You're very welcome.
What show is your guilty pleasure? Literally anything that you feel absolute remorse for watching.
Oh, probably. I mean, I've gone on record to say that one of my guilty pleasures is Ghost Adventures. There you go. I have such a fascination with like ghosts and anything like occult and paranormal. So I get a secret kick out of, Zach going around and like screaming and every now and then taking his shirt off. So. But I will say, she has her own TV show now. The Dr. Pimple Popper. Who here is a popaholic? Okay, good, I'm not alone. No, there's something oddly satisfying and fascinating about just popping a zit. Right, see?
Well, also, I'd like to thank you for being the girlfriend furry, because you helped me out. I appreciate that.
Yes!
When you started collaborating with all these other YouTubers like Jaden and James and everyone else, how did you feel when you first started to like get yourself out there? Like, hey, you want to make a video together? Without sounding like super nervous.
Well, the first time I asked one of the bigger people for a collaboration was with Jaden, and she did like a Yelp on one of my videos, and that video was just the one that went viral and pushed me into my YouTube career. And it was just a case of she was just my friend. She found my stuff and we were talking to each other online. We'd seen each other at VidCon. And so that first collaboration wasn't too hard, I would say. It's just we naturally become friends and it was just easy to ask her. But every now and then you do want to like reach out to someone outside your comfort zone and say, hey, would you do a voice for me? Like I got Anthony Padilla. Used to be in Smosh and now he's doing his own thing. We talked to each other a little bit and I really wanted to get his voice in the Q&A. And you just gotta say, hey, if you have the time, it would be really great to have you in on this joke. And if not, that's fine. Like always give them the road out. Like never back them into a corner, no matter who you're talking to. But yeah, so it's just, you learn to be confident and say, yeah, I'm a good YouTuber, I'm a good animator, I deserve to ask this person. I mean, like, YouTube has taught me so much confidence, like, it has taught me how to be so much more confident in myself, and you have to in order to be a YouTuber. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Hello.
Hi. Hello. There's an option. This is just a random question, but what's it like being a YouTuber?
Oh, what's it like being a YouTuber? I would say it is the hardest job I've ever had, but it is also the best job I've ever had. Because I used to think that going off and working for Disney or DreamWorks or Pixar, that was the dream job. I thought working on these big, giant movies and saying, oh yeah, like I did that shot in this $50 million movie would be the ultimate thing for me. And then I found YouTube, and I get to set my own schedule, I get to wake up when I want to, I get to work as hard and as long as I want to, and there's nothing like being your own boss. And so it is it's the best job ever. And I don't see myself doing any other job in this world that would make me as happy. But I will say, it takes a lot of determination, self-motivation. You are the only one putting out the work, so you have to decide, I need to get up and work. So, and it's also a lot of fun coming out here and see you guys and see that you guys are very willing to listen to what I have to say. That hasn't happened in my life, trust me. Like, I was always the person sitting in the back that nobody wanted to hear from. And now, here we are. So, you can do it too.
I have one last comment I do want to say.
Okay.
You actually were on accident, like I just found one of your videos on accident. You actually were the first anime YouTuber I've seen.
Really? Well, I hope I made a good impression for the rest of them. Thank you so much for watching my stuff.
Hi.
Hello.
So growing up and doing art, what was one of your biggest inspirations?
My biggest inspiration. So, right when I kind of started getting the idea that I could maybe do animation as a career, I was really into Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network was going through like a really great period for them, where they had like Cartoon Fridays, and they had, you know, Cow and Chicken, and Ed, Ed and Eddie, Powerpuff Girls, Courage the Cowardly Dog. And that was a renaissance for Cartoon Network that was hugely inspiring for me, because it was like they had so many different styles all going at once, and so many different types of shows all going at once, and it just felt like a wonderland for creativity. So I was really, really inspired by Cartoon Network back then. Invader Zim was a show that I really loved. Who saw Into the Florbus? Yeah! I finally carved out time to sit down and watch that. It was exactly like what I remember Invader Zim to be. But yeah, I got to, I was hugely inspired by the cartoons that I grew up on. And Disney too. Disney too has always been a big inspiration for me, because they've always had the knack to find artists who are just masters of their craft. Like, some of my favorite animators in the world are old, you know, Disney masters like Glenn Keane and Eric Goldberg, and the gentleman who, why am I blanking on his name? He animated the horse on the ball for Adventure Time. James Baxter. Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes. And also that lovely sequence in the Steven universe.
James, bye.
So I would say just whatever makes you happy, like whatever animated show, movie, artist that makes you happy, that can be your inspiration, you know? So that's what I was inspired by.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, since I do live here, but I stumbled onto you because of Jaden and of course James, but I also have like 2 questions. So, I am trying to start in animation too, as I am an artist too, but what would you all recommend for like a tablet? What kind of animation like program would you use? Like the best one that you can try to use?
The absolute best one, I think, that's going to give you more, like fewer boundaries to work within would probably be like Toon Boom, Harmony. I personally haven't like downloaded that yet because I need to like upgrade my graphics card. And that's another thing, is that if you do get that one, you're going to need like a monster of a graphics card, and that's just more expensive. But the ultimate thing that you have to remember with animation is it's an expensive hobby. It's like if you want to be a computer programmer, computer coder, you're going to have to pay for all the parts. So unfortunately, it is definitely on the more expensive side. But when you can actually save the money and get those types of things and actually learn those programs, that's going to help you out a lot, and it's going to give you like many more possibilities with your animation. So Toon Boom is the absolute best, but I still work in Animate. What it used to be called Flash, it's called Animate now, and they've upped their game. They're doing great. I can do amazing stuff in it.
And the second question is like, what kind of fandoms are you in? Like, kind of shows, anime, manga, whatever?
Well, I've gone on record to say that my absolute favorite anime will always be Ouran High School Host Club. All right. Got a thing for Kyoya for some reason. the glasses boy. But I'm caught up on My Hero Academia. Really love that. And as far as like other animated things go, Gravity Falls will always be my favorite. Rick and Morty is doing amazing things right now. Love that. Always have a profound respect for South Park. That's for is 16 plus, all of the kiddies in the audience. So is Rick and Morty. But as far as other fandoms go, you know, I still have a special place in my heart for Invader Zim, for Ed, Edd n Eddy. What else? And as far as like live action stuff goes, I'm really into like historical dramas. Like I love Downton Abbey, I love The Crown, Outlander. That's a show. And yeah, I really like all of the historical dramas. I'm kind of like old soul at heart, I guess. But yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you draw the same characters, scenes, and objects over and over and over again. How do you not get bored?
Well, that's a really good question because it is easy to kind of like get in a rut and get stuck when you're drawing a lot of things over and over and over again. And that's usually just do something different every time. Let me just pull up something that I have here ready to go. Because for my girl, she has a couple of stock poses that I use on her, and one of them is the one that you see in this shot right here. That's a stock pose, that's just ready to go, and I just put a new outfit on her and we're done. But I wanted, for this opening sequence here, I can get it to open. If I can get it to open, there we go. This opening sequence here, I wanted her to do something a little, it's ginger pale. I wanted her to do something a little different here. Explainers and entertainers, my little oodle-lollies, Rebecca Parham here. I wanted her to do a full-on curtsy. So that is a way to keep it fresh. Do something new, do something interesting, try a different idea. And part of that was I had to actually stand up, put on a dress, and stand in front of a mirror and just go, like this. I also looked at Alice in Wonderland, where she's like, turn your toes out. Now curtsy, open your mouth a little wider, and always say, yes, your majesty. And that was a great reference. So I would just say try something new, even if it's just a little something like a new pose, like I did here. I'd never animated like a real curtsy before. So yeah, just keep it fresh for yourself. You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
I was wondering, your first question is, what's the hardest thing for you to animate?
The hardest thing for me to animate. I think a lot of effects animation, it can be a little difficult because like fire for one is a very complex movement, and if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. But once you get it down, it's easy to loop it and reuse it over and over again. And it also can be a little boring because you're just like trying to figure out, okay, how is this water gonna like fly through the air when it comes off of someone's hand? Like I had to do for this one right here, the teeth accident one. My father comes in and he's covered in blood and he does this hand movement that sprays blood everywhere. And that was really hard to figure out sometimes because you have to, imagine the trajectory and where things are going and all that. But other than that, I think it's just anything like where the camera changes is a little difficult because then you have to like think in perspective, and that eats up a lot of time. So I think anything where you have like this going on. But yeah.
Okay, so like second question is like a fun question, I guess. Unless it's like have you ever encountered any weird airport stories? Like, did you witness someone have a mental breakdown, or did you lose your luggage, or something like that?
There was an airplane story. I hope that could suffice. Hold on a second.
Oh, the one about touching the plane?
No. Okay, so here's my weird airplane story. So we were coming back from a trip from Walt Disney World, and we were at the Orlando airport, and we were on the plane. And then we were waiting for someone to come on, and it was this older gentleman, and he was kind of holding up the whole plane. And he finally comes on, and he sits down, and the engines are revving. We are on the runway, and we start going, and then all of a sudden you hear a woman say, "Stop the plane! He's having a heart attack." And yes, and so they stop the plane. mid takeoff, like it was about to go off its front wheel was about to go up, and they stopped. And the woman beside him had pulled him into the aisle and was starting to do CPR on him. And the funny thing about that whole situation was the plane was full of nurses and doctors who were just at a convention. They saved his life. And you can actually see on KSAT 12 here in San Antonio, they did a full story on it. And and I was on that plane.
Are you going to animate that?
Probably so. And you guys got a sneak peek of it.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm actually studying animation in school right now. I'm in the portfolio phase. I'm about to go into an internship. So what's your tips about making your portfolio and about getting that internship?
Okay. So portfolios, it depends on what you're going for. Would you say that you're going for animation, or are you going for storyboarding, lighting? Are you going into 3D or 2D?
2D.
Okay. So are you going for full-on animation, or are you going for storyboarding?
Storyboarding. And
So for storyboarding, you're going to want to put some of your boards in there. Make sure they're cleaned up, but not too clean, because they want to see that you can work fast and work rough, but just rough enough that you're okay to throw them out and just start again. But just be absolutely clear with your staging, be absolutely clear with all of your boards. Include those, and also include what are called iconic moments. Let me see if I can pull up something. See what we have here. Iconic moments are moments where there's something going on. There's a story being told just in that moment. So if you look at this, just in this one singular image alone, there is a story being told. There is a hotel room, there is a very tired woman. She is wearing a convention bag, and she is slouched over, she's all disheveled, she looks very, very tired, she's holding her high heels. So there is an obvious story being told right here. And that's what's called an iconic moment. And that's what storyboard artists need to be able to do. And it's actually a hard thing to convey to a lot of people because they just can't grasp the concept of it. So if you're going for story, absolutely do that. Even if you're going for animation, do that. Because that's gonna show that you can do good posing, do good staging, because this is what we call a good silhouette. Because her arm right here is away from her body. It's a pose that if you black it out, you can still understand what's going on. Just make sure that you keep those in there. But also show that you're pretty good at variety, that you can do romantic, comedic, dramatic, an action fight sequence, dancing even. So I would say just show variety and show that you know how to tell a story.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. Starting out on YouTube, how was the first few months or so of that?
It can be a little rough if you really want to make YouTube work, absolutely, because you're not going to get a lot of views at the very beginning. You're just going to have to put out work just because you love doing it, not necessarily to get views. So just keep at it. If you know that what you got is good, then keep at it. If you know it can be improved, then improve it. And try to look at what's going on YouTube and see what's popular, and then do it your own way. If everyone is talking about, teachers, then do something about teachers, but do it your way. And that's gonna make you more searchable. And then when you get people on, then you can start doing things even more your own way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, and also hello the random channel that'll rip this onto YouTube. But I have a question more about analytics. I hear that the first 5 tags on your YouTube channel, when you upload a video, they are the most important, and then the rest after that doesn't matter. Is that true?
You want to know the actual truth of that? Tags don't matter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What now is mattering more than ever is what is in your title and what's in the description of your video. And YouTube is doing this new thing where you can add hashtags to the description of your video, and the first 3 will pop up right above the title of your video. If you've noticed people doing that, that's what's going on. And that is actually what makes your video more searchable. So I would say, I mean, still do the tags, but keep in mind that what you put in the description is far more important, and the title especially is very important. And even the thumbnail is incredibly important because that's what we're all visuals, so we look at the thumbnail and we're like, click. So I'd do that.
I also have I don't really animate. I use talk sprites like Emirichu and people like that use. Is that okay to start off with? Because I'm not good at animating at all.
I mean, it's good to start off with, but absolutely go beyond that and push yourself and do more. Even people who are not that great at drawing need to eventually learn how to draw because, I mean, unless you work strictly in 3D, you're gonna need to. So you might as well just start, practicing now, get yourself a cheap bamboo tablet, get a free software like Krita or something like that, and just start practicing and going at it because eventually to really gain any sort of traction, you're gonna have to start to find your own way.
No problem, thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I love your outfit, by the way. Just needed to say that first.
I seen that dress too. It's a tort, right?
Did you get yours from Tort too?
Yeah. This entire outfit's tort.
Oh my god, it looks so good.
Not Spawn.
Okay, so my question's gonna be is that as someone who's dealt with a lot of hardship in their life and always you've always been an artist and everything. And there's times where you're get into a rut with yourself, and how do you how do you use art to help you kind of go through it? Because I know personally from my own experience is that it's always been the thing that I can sometimes lean on, and sometimes a way to let everything out in a healthy way and everything. And I wonder how's that for you?
Well, hardships and the way we deal with them, it's different for every single person. Because some of us want to just go off and think about it by ourselves for a while, and we don't want to talk to people about it. Some of us have to talk to people about it. I've learned that as I've gotten older, I gotta talk to people about it. I gotta have someone to tell the story to. And that's why when I make a video about someone who hurt me in the past, millions of people have now seen that video. My story has been told. That holds no more power over me. So what art is, to me, and I think in general, is communication. Art is telling a story. It's telling, even if you do a painting of a sunset, you are communicating to your audience, this is how beautiful this sunset looks. If you're doing something abstract, you're this is how great these colors and shapes look together. So it is about communication. And that's why art is so effective in getting out those issues and getting out the hardships that you're going through right now. I mean, when my dad died, I did a lot of grieving art. The night it happened, I went back, stayed up late, and just drew the first thing that I felt. And it was this incredibly dark, sad thing, but it made me feel better in that moment. So I would just say, draw whatever helps you get through that, and whether you need to show it to someone or don't is what helps you. It may not help me the same way it helps you, and vice versa. So I would just say whatever feels right and healthy and doesn't hurt you or anybody else, that's the right way to do it.
Well, thank you for telling your stories on the internet.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching them.
Hello.
Hello.
So I heard when YouTube monetizes a video, the algorithm varies it. Does monetizing it also the algorithm at all?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. So when you monetize a video, does it get more views or anything, or is it just gaining money? Because I heard when it's demonetized, it varies it.
Well, admittedly, the YouTube algorithm is there to show you what it thinks you want to see, and it's also there to make money. So monetized videos more likely will probably be pushed to the front because it just makes more money. And you have also videos that are under Google Preferred if they're a creator who is particularly brand friendly and has an audience that advertisers really want to get at, then you'll be put on Google Preferred and advertisers will pay full price for your video. instead of like a auction price. So that would be the ultimate place that you would want to get to. But like, yeah, I think that monetized videos definitely have a better chance with the current YouTube algorithm. But that's not to say that your stuff is never going to be found. It's not going to be buried.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so hi, first of all. My name is
Freddie.
Thanks. It's kind of like my favorite video game. My name is Daniela. I come from Peru. Hello. Well, I'm just starting to make my YouTube channel. I started making gacha videos, like this gacha like anime. But my question more than anything is about the first video I watched about you. It was after watching something else's waiting videos. I remember it was being how to creep out your favorite YouTubers at convention. I was wondering how not to do it.
How not to creep out your favorite YouTubers?
Yeah, because I'm more like, every time I see someone famous or someone I actually know, I sometimes just freak out and just want to start to run away or run towards them.
Oh, so how to approach? I mean, just approach a person like a voice actor or a YouTuber or anybody that you particularly admire, just to approach them like a normal person, because that's what we are. We're just normal people. Like, I'm honestly kind of surprised that so many of you turned out for a dork who sits in front of a computer every day and just makes cartoons. Trust me, it's a little strange to me even. And if you have like a favorite video of theirs that you want to talk about, absolutely. And just talk to them like, you know, they're a normal anime YouTube loving dork, because they are, you know? And just, yeah, and it's really difficult, trust me, when, you know, you really, really particularly like someone and it's hard to approach them. It takes a lot of courage. But I think you also have to understand that they're used to it and they're always happy to see you, unless they're like in the middle of something really important. Like if I'm sleeping, don't. I stole that joke from James. But like I said, they're just normal people, and just treat them the way you'd like to be treated, I guess. Golden rule always works.
Okay, thank you.
Dani, ¿puedes preguntarle por qué su personaje no tiene ni boca ni nariz?
Te voy a mostrar el video.
No, dile por favor, pregunta.
No, I want to know why don't any of your characters have mouths?
Boca. It's basically because lip syncing and a lot of the mouth shapes and expressions, they take a lot of time to do. And it just, what I personally love to do with animation is what are called like strong storytelling poses. I consider myself a student of Chuck Jones, who was a master of it. I mean, like, there's a difference between this and this, which is very Chuck Jones, you know. And I would prefer to figure out this pose instead of this pose and have a mouth. Like, it would take me about the same amount of time to lip sync audio doing this instead of like no lip sync and do this. So I think it's just what I feel is important about the storytelling and about the acting and the character. It's not necessarily the mouth. So it saves me some time.
Just like mouths with the eyes, or James without a mouth moving, right?
Yeah. And I think it was just, you know, this was what it ended up being. Just no mouth was a style choice as well. So, but it does save a little bit of time, especially when you sit down and draw so many drawings over and over and over again.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Slightly tall and still short. My question, first one, is how many frames on average do you think a typical video consists of?
Well, so with limited animation, let me see if I can do this. My pen's acting up. So as you can see here in this timeline, right in here, there are some frames in here, and there's a lot of frames that are held. Let me go ahead and mute that. There are a lot of frames that are held, and that's done artfully, but you can also see that she has a blink right here, and that adds to a lot of the life into it. So as far as like how many frames I could published whenever, because I wasn't sure when it was going to be published. But I couldn't honestly tell you how many frames it is, because if you want to do full framed animation where you actually do 24 frames a second and be a Richard Williams, God rest his soul, then go for it. But you're going to be doing literally 24 separate drawings per second of animation, and if you want to do like the average length of an animated storytelling video, which is like 7 minutes, yeah, that's a lot. So I would say be artful about how many frames you hold on and how many frames you actually animate, because you can see here, like I wanted to spend the time to animate this, but I don't necessarily need to spend the time animating too much, and I can hold a little bit more. Like this right here, it's the same drawing, but her arm just goes down and her head goes forward, and that saves some time too.
Next question. How do you regulate breaks? Because I know on my whole thing, if I get into a whole creative process, I'm just going to sit there for hours and ignore the world.
You are asking the wrong person. Because this convention is the closest thing that I've had to a break in a long time. If you really want to know the hours that I work, I get into my office anywhere from like 9 to 10 a.m. and I work until midnight. Every single day. I do not take weekends off. And it is not the healthiest thing, but every now and then I will feel, okay, I'm getting a little burnt out. I got a little burnt out after the VidCon recap, and I started to feel it affect my mood, and I'm like, okay, need to fix this. So I did take a day. I went out and went swimming, and that did wonders for my mood. So it's just about, but I also have like, I've done this for so long that I know when the burnout's coming, I can feel it coming on, and I know to make adjustments in my own schedule. And sometimes I will take like an afternoon off and swim or watch a movie or something like that. And every now and then my family will come up and say, hey, Becca, we're gonna go see a movie, or we're gonna go out to dinner. You're coming. I'm like, okay. So, and always make time for the people in your life, because you never know what life's gonna throw at you, and you gotta have people in your life that you can lean on and depend on. And especially when you get to like a bigger YouTube level, you find that people that you can trust kind of starts to, the number of people you can trust starts to go down and down and down. So always hold the people who have your best interests at heart very, very close to you. That's why Mama Karen is here. Where is she? Wave, Mom. There she is. That's her. Yeah, she's been my biggest support. Round of applause for Mama Karen.
Thank you, you're wonderful, and I love your voice.
Thank you.
Hold on. There's a disadvantage to being tall. Try getting your head hit in the head multiple times.
My brother's a tall boy too, so yes.
Here's a pretty simple question. Any tips for wannabe artists who are trying to improve?
Mostly just practice. A quote that I always tend to say on panels at conventions is a Walt Stanchfield quote. He was a Disney artist who had trained the animators, and he'd said, there are 10,000 bad drawings in all of us, and it's as important as possible to get them out as soon as possible. And so you will fill mountains of sketchbooks with mediocre or bad drawings before you start to get to a place where you feel comfortable. Every now and then I'll have one where I'm just like, whoa, that never seen the light of day there. But it's just getting them all out, and improving is also to do with drawing new things. Going out, if you're really, really shaky on backgrounds, then go out and draw environments. Go to a coffee shop and draw the corner of the room and work on perspective. Just figuring out where your weaknesses are and then zeroing in on those and practicing those is the easiest way to improve very quickly.
I see. Thank you. I don't have a second question, so I just made one up. Any favorite scary movies?
Ooh. I forced my brother to watch It Chapter 1 so we can watch It Chapter 2 together before I go to Australia. Gosh, favorite scary movie. You know, for some reason, The Exorcist always comes up to mind. Like, I love that classic, and I love the fact about The Exorcist is that my mom tells the story all the time that people were like fainting and freaking out and vomiting in the movie theaters back in the day when that movie came out. She went and saw it and was freaked out for months afterwards. And there's something special about that in movie history when a movie can have that kind of reaction. But what's so interesting to me is that we watch that now and we're like, and that's not too bad. Because we are exposed to far worse these days.
I watched the Paranormal Activity movie. I thought that stuff was real.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Random question. What's your favorite Don Bluth movie?
Don Bluth. Don Bluth has an interesting filmography. Yes, he does, because he's can be an absolute master, or he can just be like, oops, Troll in Central Park. Oh boy. I think my favorite though, the one that I can watch over and over again is probably All Dogs Go to Heaven. Yes. I mean, Secret of Nim is his absolute magnum opus. It is his masterpiece. It was his first movie, so it was something that he was needing to get out of the system immediately out of the gate, and he did wonderful on it. But All Dogs Go to Heaven, Charlie is such a character to me, and he's such a great character arc to his story of where he was very, very selfish, very, very underhanded and insincere, and a little girl changing him for the better to where it literally saves him from the pits of hell. That's great. That's excellent. And he's such a character to get behind. And he's the perfect example that you can give a student to show what a character arc is, where a character is this way from the beginning of the film, and this is where they're at the end. And it's so obvious for him.
Totally agree. Second question, how do you approach drawing backgrounds?
Practice.
Practice.
It is all about just sitting down and drawing the world around you. And like I said, it's just eventually perspective will come to you. There's always the whole like, draw the horizon line and put the dot here and put the dot here, and I hated that so much. Hated it. I will say in Photoshop there are a couple of brushes where it gives you like a 1-point perspective plane. I love that. So like if you have Photoshop, it now comes with Kyle Webster brushes, and there is a 1-point perspective brush in there. So I would say get into that and use that whenever you're working in Photoshop. I don't know if you work in Photoshop.
I've been using Maybane lately. I kind of stopped doing Photoshop altogether.
Okay. Well, but you can always like make your own grid, or you can find a grid online and just kind of like overlay it or turn down the opacity on it and draw using that and practice using that. And there's a lot of tutorials online that can teach you perspective really, really well.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hey guys, before we move on, I'm going to let you guys know we've got about 20 minutes left, so Kiddo in the gray hoodie, you were definitely the last person to ask any questions. I'm going to ask y'all to keep it kind of quick, kind of short, because I do have to get her to sound check, okay? Thank you.
And she's telling me to keep it quick too.
Thank you.
All right, so I have like the fastest question possible. So you know how James just released his like Halloween outfit along with the little tote bag? What are you gonna do? I ask because the thing
Note
is,
to self, tell the Creator Inc. team to get on that.
I ask because my fiance and I want to do couples costumes, and I love you the most, and he likes James the most, so...
Well, I don't know if you have seen the Halloween picture that I put out last year where I did a prosthetic thing over my mouth, and it looked creepy. I put the veins and everything. It was great. So you could always do that. Just get like some liquid latex and spirit gum. Take two flat cotton swabs, like you do the stuff you use for your face. Put them here, and then just layer, 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 and you'll have no mouth. And you'll have to breathe through your nose the whole day and not eat. That's what I did.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question about the industry, and I'm going into graphic design and advertising, but I want to minor in animation. Is the commercial industry the same as animation industry, or is it different?
The animation industry, at its face value, are the people who work at the studios, or you can be a freelance animator. I've done some animation for commercials as well. It's basically, if you were freelancing as a graphic artist, you just add animation to your repertoire and market to people who are looking for animation. So it's not hugely different, but you do have a different network of people that you want to stay connected with. So if you're going to go into animation, get connected with other animators just so you have them on your side. Should they have a project they can't do for a client and they want to pass it on to you. I got a lot of work doing that. Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of confused.
It's okay. It's all good.
How did you know that you were meant to do art?
How did I know that I was meant to do art? Okay. I think it just came naturally as a kid. Like, I was always performing as a kid. I would do plays for my parents in the living room. I would draw. I would try to replicate, the things that I saw on TV. And it was just something that I knew, If it makes you happy, and if it's something that you're willing to put your free time into, chances are you're supposed to be doing it, Because especially, when you're a kid and it holds your attention, it holds your focus, when you could be playing a video game or watching a movie or doing nothing, and you would rather animate or draw or build something or play a certain sport, then you kind of know that's what you're probably supposed to be doing. So I would say you'll just know,
And have you tried any different styles of art, like sculpting or caricature?
I'm particularly good at caricature, actually. Let me see if I can pull something up real quick. There's nothing too iffy on here. Wheezy Waiter. There's a Wheezy Waiter. That's one. I used to do a lot of caricaturing. In school because they taught us how to do that, because we had to do a caricaturing lesson at one point where we had to do ourselves. I've never done sculpting, but I do try to keep it fresh, keep it going, different styles, and I always try to remember to draw on paper periodically, because you can lose it if you don't draw on paper. If you draw too digitally, you'll lose it. But yeah, whenever I have time, I do try to keep that up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello again.
You mentioned some of your favorite cartoons as a child. My main question is, were you ever scared of Courage the Cowardly Dog?
Return the slam, or suffer my curse. Yes, absolutely. There were instances, absolutely, in that show that scared the living daylights out of me, and I was in middle school. I was, kind of growing up. There was instances like the Perfect episode. There was this weird 3D thing that said, "You're not perfect," and I'm just where'd that come from? Absolutely, that was a great show. I don't know how that flew under people's radars, but that was great. The pilot episode with the chicken that was nominated for an Academy Award. Yeah. The pilot episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog was nominated for an Academy Award. It's the funniest thing. And that one was creepy too, with the chicken and everything. So I love that show though.
Okay, thank you.
You. Hello.
So how do you ever make an original character? Because whenever I try to make original characters, I always end up finishing and I look at one of my favorite animes and I realize that I sort of based off of that character without it.
So that's actually very, very normal. Yes, I know. I know. Don't worry, baby. Okay, so that's actually very, very normal. I started off I started off doing a lot of fan art. A lot of my first... Your little tantrum. So, I started off doing a lot of fan art, and I based a lot of my original characters off of the style of a show that I was particularly into, like Invader Zim or Ed, Edd n Eddy. And that's completely normal for a beginner because you don't know what you're doing when you're just starting off. So all you can really do is look to what somebody else has already done. When I first started doing like live action vlogs at the very beginning of my channel, I didn't know how to do vlogs, so I was replicating what I saw other more popular vloggers do, and I was trying to replicate that same energy and, you know, that kind of manicness about it. And it didn't come off as sincere at all. And now, if I were to do a live action something these days, I'd be a little more myself in front of the camera, just because I've had more experience of talking in front of people and all that. So, it'll come down to just practice long enough and push yourself out of your own safe zone a lot more and try more dramatic shapes, more dramatic styles. And just keep pushing yourself further and further, and you'll find what is your unique style.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
What's good? I have one question. Are you going to be able to sign anything within the piece, like during this convention at all?
Well, I will be signing after the concert tonight. I also will have a VIP. I have a VIP autograph session at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And I also have a table that for the next 2 days I'll probably be at periodically, just in between a lot of these events that I'm doing. But I think I have to immediately go off to sound check after this. Like I can't sign anything right here, right now.
Oh, that's fine. But can you say like my brother Andrew and his friend Maria really love your videos and they really want to just hear you say something.
Hi Andrew and Maria. We miss you here at San Japan. We're having a great time, and thank you so much for watching my stuff.
I appreciate you. Take it easy.
Hello.
Okay, I have 2 questions. I'll make it fast. So the first one is, what's your favorite storytime video that you've made or told so far, and what was your process?
Oh, so my favorite one actually was the one where I talk about my teacher, the theater teacher, because, yeah, Medusa. Well, because the way that I was approaching it, I was being so mindful about the way I was doing it, and I felt like I did exactly what I set out to do. I wasn't going to sit there and tell you and be a psychologist and say, this is what an abusive situation looks like. I wanted to show you what I went through. I wanted to show you all of the signs that I saw, and I wanted to see if you can reach into your own life and say, that's something I'm going through right now. And 10 minutes after uploading that video, people were messaging me and emailing me and saying, this was a wake-up call for me, Becca, because this is going on in my life right here and right now, and I didn't even know this could be an abusive situation. So the fact that it not only helped me to tell that story, but it helped other people realize that they were in a potentially harmful, toxic situation, that means the world to me. So I feel like I did what I've always wanted to do with these videos, and that is make the human connection and show people you're not alone. We're all going through this together, and here are my troubles, here's my life, and if you can find some solace in that, then perfect.
Actually, your Demon and Angel recruit video was one of my favorite videos and one of the first ones I ever saw. I actually cried when I watched it. So
That one was definitely made, and when I was in a place where I was very emotionally fragile as well, like I think my dad had just died, and it was a way of thinking about your pessimistic and optimistic voice in your head that made it so much easier for me to deal with. And I'm so glad that so many people have been helped by that as well.
And then my second question is, this one's a fun one. If you could be a monster, what would you be?
A monster? Ooh. I think I've always liked the idea of being a siren. Of having of sitting, because I'm a scuba diver, I love the beach, so I'll just sit on a rock all day and go, oh, On to your death, sailors. I love the idea of that. I think that's so fun. So
Did you
deliciously
pick
fun.
Siren? Because you have a beautiful voice. I love the song that you had made on your channel. That was like the funnest thing I listened to.
Oh,
I listen to all the
thank
time
you.
when I'm sewing.
Are you going to be at the concert? Because I'm singing at the concert.
I don't know. My squad's right here. We're all tired.
Tired squad. Oh, poor tired squad. Thank you.
I just want to say, watching your videos made me happy no matter what situation I was in. So thank you for that. My question is, what was the proudest piece that you've ever made in your artwork?
Ah, goodness. There were some moments in the music video that I did that I really, really enjoyed. I don't know if they were my proudest, because like I'd have to really think about what my proudest would be. But I really enjoyed, I love animating dance because it's so hard to do, but when you do it, it's so satisfying, you know? And I love, you know, a lot of the looping, like walking that she did and all this kind of stuff, and you know, like, wow, like that.
Yeah.
There's something so really satisfying and appealing about dancing, and especially animating it, because with animation, you're not limited to like human proportions. You can like stretch and go farther and then come back, and it's wildly difficult to do, but it's so satisfying. So I say, like, anytime I've gotten the chance to animate dancing in a more realistic, like, really, like, frame-by-frame way, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello again.
Hello. I do videos about educational things about, like, the natural world, like insects, ocean creatures, and, you know, monsters and cryptids from other cultures and such. But I don't know if that would really be something a lot of people would search for. Do you know how I could like optimize that in any way?
You know, there are many different places online where you can get the analytics of what people are searching for, what is popular right now. A lot of really smart business people will gear everything they do that way and see, you know, like, I worked for a client one time that did educational math songs. And he looked up what people were searching for as far as math education for kids goes, and he saw that, oh, they're looking for stuff about angles. I'm gonna write a song and have Rebecca animate a song about angles. And he was wildly successful doing that. So it really is paying attention to the trends, looking into analytics, see what people are searching for, and that is the best way to make yourself more optimized. Because education on YouTube is a huge community. I mean, it does very, very well. You know, some of my friends are anybody know Life Noggin?
Yes. Yeah, I watch him.
Pat, he's great. Love him to death.
Okay, well, thank you.
I have 5 minutes.
So how do you like San Japan so far?
How about like San Japan so far? I've actually haven't seen a lot of it so far. I went out to lunch and then I came here. So, but everybody's been so nice so far. I was in Uber yesterday and I was like turned this way towards the window trying to talk to someone in the back seat, and I look up and the van next to me, someone was doing this. I'm like. So that was fun. I love the San Japan crowd. I love geek crowds in general because they're my people, and they're so sweet and passionate and enthusiastic about everything. So I love San Japan. I do.
And my other question is, since you like Disney so much, have you ever played Kingdom Hearts?
No, I have not, but I know. But I did buy it for my brother back in the day when he was a kid, and he was like, Disney video game, because Disney wasn't too good at video games back then. But when Kingdom Hearts came out, it blew everybody out of the water. And I was like, oh, just wait, little boy. You play that. And he played it, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever! So that's my one Kingdom Hearts story, is that I got my brother into it.
Hello, Rebecca.
Hello.
I just wanted to say thank you for making your videos. I get like a lot of anxiety and stuff like that, and just watching your videos just really calms me down. So it's really nice meeting you.
Thank you. I'm glad, because that's what I set out to do, is just make people happy and just kind of get you away from the troubles of your day.
Yeah. My question is, I wanted to know how it was like at VidCon this year to actually be like one of the featured like creators. Because I know you're really excited about that. You talked about the recaps.
It was an experience like I will never forget. It was definitely very, very exhausting. I was hungry, I want to say like 90% of the time. And I was just tired at all times. Of course, me being the fashion girl that I am, I had to wear like the pretty shoes that were not good for conventions, so my feet hurt a lot. But I was still so happy to be there, and it was so great to have a dream that you've been working for so long actually come to fruition after so long. And because I mean, that was my sixth VidCon, and I finally become a feature creator on number 6. So you can do it. You know, it may take a long time, but it can be done.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. Hey, first thing I have 2 questions. First one, after you do these, how do you go to the grocery store without being noticed?
Oh, that's funny you should bring up the grocery store, because I do get noticed at the grocery store. One of my favorite stories to tell about being noticed was when I was checking out at H-E-B. Woo. I love H-E-B. So I was checking out at H-E-B, and there was a guy about in high school age, and he's a big, tall football player looking kind of guy, right? And he's in front of me, and he's with his mom. And he looks up at me, kind of like looks at me funny. He pulls out his phone, searches something, and starts looking between me and his phone for a bit. And I'm like, oh boy. And I had no makeup on, my hair was all frizzy and poofy, I had my glasses on, and I was just like, okay, something's going on here. And finally his mom is like, she's ready to go, she's out the door, and he's like, are you Rebecca Perrin from Let Me Explain Studios? And I said, yes, and he's like, picture, yes, click, and he was out the door. So I have all my groceries delivered now. Nah, but you know, I don't get recognized as often as you'd think, as often as I would think. Every now and then it happens, and it makes my day when it happens. You know, I love meeting you guys, and I love seeing the faces, you know, behind the computer screens, you know? So, yeah.
Okay, second question. Marvel or DC?
Oh. I invoke the 5th.
All right, y'all. That, I'm going to save it from that question. Thank you guys for coming. Come to our concert. We're going to a sound check now. It starts your concert starts
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. All right, we'll see you. Thank you guys.
Thank you.